There's a reason Hollywood absolutely hates someone like the critical drinker. Not because he's irrelevant or wrong, but actually because the guy has kind of been right for far too long. For years now, the critical drinker has been trying to warn the general movie-going audience about the slow decay of modern entertainment. Hell, I've done the same, as many others have too. We all noticed it, right? The writing has been getting worse, the characters are becoming shallow, and storytelling is getting replaced with ideological messaging and social construct nonsense all the time. Also, footage-wise in this video, nothing really makes sense, so just consider the footage here as filler as I speak. Cool? Cool. Anyways, the fact we used to get great movies all the time, alongside movies and more that didn't talk down to us, kinda seems sort of alien these days. Because there's always something trying to preach against you to some capacity, but the reaction from the entertainment media types and the websites and other critics and then some is to not listen to the critical drinker or others like him, but instead to smear them, dismiss him even, or just flat out pretend like someone like him doesn't even exist. It never works though, does it? Because the more a website attacks you or tries to smear you, the more they accidentally prove why the entire point of someone like a drinker or anyone who critiques pop culture is actually needed these days. And this all reached a fever point recently due to a controversy surrounding Drinker and an author named Andy Weir. So if you don't know, Andy Weir wrote Project Hail Mary. Yeah, the movie that just came out, it's doing numbers in case you don't know. Anyways, Andy Weir was on Drinker's channel where they talked Project Hail Mary, in the absolute state of Hollywood, and at one point, Andy Weir spoke to the Drinker about things like modern day Star Trek and how in Andy's opinion, Star Trek is now terrible, which yes, I agree. It's not even really a hot take because it is. Modern day Star Trek is like a lot of things that push the same sort of progressive nonsense in their storytelling. It's loathed just universally pretty much, and these sorts of shows or projects do not have large audiences for a reason. As Geeks and Gamers showed here, as you can see, apparently the new Starfleet Academy show, which will end with season 2, probably because it has the contract for 2 seasons, otherwise it wouldn't have reached there, is only getting about 40,000 views an episode, which, if you don't know, that is abysmal for a TV show. That means that a single video of like mine gets more views than an entire network television show about a legacy science fiction franchise, if you can believe it. And I can assure you that Starfleet Academy cost way more to produce than a single YouTube video as well. This is, yeah, abysmally bad. The only reason the show still exists is because, like I said, it's probably in their contract that they have to make a second season. But even then, Paramount is losing millions of dollars on yet another Alex Kurtzman Star Trek project that is resonating with nobody. Go figure, for like the 10th time already. So Star Trek's performance, it's a lot like Dragon Age the Veilguard of TV shows pretty much, right? Its audience is small, and these sorts of things only exist for one reason, to pander. That's literally all it ever is for. We've seen it in games too. Far too many are pushing progressive nonsense over just telling a good story. It's no wonder why the games that don't pander tend to sell the best, and ironically, those sorts of games also usually review better too, which might tell you something. Remind me again what Claire Obscure Expedition 33's Metacritic score was and how many awards it won. Oh, what's that? It didn't pander at all? Not even once? Well, imagine that. Anyways, like I said, naturally, because Andy Weir, the author of Project Hail Mary, spoke to the critical drinker publicly, this now means that Drinker, he has to be destroyed, and Andy Weir by association too. As this one tweet from a progressive type would say, that disappointing moment when you find out the author of one of your favorite books uses generative AI, is against real-world commentary, politics, and fiction, and deeply misunderstands Star Trek. Ah, yes. So didn't you just say that one of your favorite books and authors, which is Project Hail Mary and Andy Weir, is now bad because the author doesn't pander to the modern audience? Again, you said that yourself, that it's one of your favorite books. So let me get this straight. You like real-world commentary, political jargon in your media, but your favorite book is in fact a story where none of that political nonsense is in it, and you're mad about this now. Doesn't the existence of Hail Mary as a book, being your favorite immediately by your own words, disavow your own critiques of Andy Weir because by definition what he believes and what he does, which is not to alienate the audience, means that he makes good books that you clearly like as well? You see what I mean? Like, these people are just low IQ. There's no other way to say it. This is like saying, wow, I love this meal from the steakhouse. It's so good. Too bad the chef isn't a vegan like me, but wow, this steak is so good. Like, what are you talking about? It doesn't make any sense.
Who are you talking to?
You're nulling your own argument with your own opinion. Like, do these people read what they say before they even hit send? I don't think so. Anyway, this is what Andy Weir said in the excerpt that this moronic fan of his posted, as it reads here. I dislike social commentary. Like, I really hate it. When I'm reading a book, I just want to be entertained, not preached at by the author. Plus, it ruins the wonder of the story if I know the author has a political or social axe to grind. I no longer speculate about all possible outcomes of the story because I know for a fact that the universe of that book will conspire to ensure that the author's political agenda is validated. I hate that, Andy Weir said. I put no politics or social commentary into my stories at all. Anyone who thinks they see something like that is reading it on their own. I have no point to make, and I'm not trying to affect the reader's opinion on anything. My sole job is to entertain, and I stick to that. And that's a really good way of making stories. It's almost as if that has worked for like decades, since the dawn of modern entertainment or something. Sure, I know that things can pull from the real world, obviously. Star Wars, for example, pulls from World War II, with the iconography of like German and Allied forces with the Empire versus the Rebellion. I get that, as well as the whole Vietnam War as well. But these days, the delusion that wraps reality from these industry types has turned everything that we know and love pretty much into total disasters. Star Wars is mostly cooked. Marvel is starting to course correct, at least somewhat movie-wise, after so many failed flops and storylines ruined by like female-first nonsense, not to mention every other week. It seems like DC Comics is just going to make another, swing in another direction, if you catch my drift, and make this character, this gender or identity or whatever. And then you have game companies like Obsidian all the time that keep ruining their core franchises to appease to nobody but like Kotaku pretty much. Andy Weir would further his stance with Star Trek, where he said this. For instance, as a lifelong Star Trek fan, it's always bothered me that there was a presumed responsibility within Star Trek shows to talk about social issues, the writer added. I just want to watch Romulans and the Federation shoot at each other. Yeah, he just wants good entertainment, but that isn't enough now, is it? So Project Hail Mary, as seen here, is projected to earn somewhere near $700 million when it's all said and done, which is very high for an original science fiction movie, especially these days. And as Drinker said there, amazing what can happen when you produce good movies. Yeah, exactly. But you see, naturally, because someone like a Drinker exists, or even a neurotic, anyone really that does this, like, this is all bad news now. Because these people can't really exist, right? They have to be destroyed. Even to be associated with them is effectively career deletion even. And the heat got so hot for Andy Weir for like speaking with the critical Drinker that, as Deadline reported here, as you can see, Andy openly then apologized to Alex Kurtzman and modern Star Trek fans over his remarks on the Drinker show. Yes, Andy bent the knee to the mob because the pushback was too much for him to handle in the end, unfortunately. And Andy Weir's public apology to Alex Kurtzman reads as follows from Andy's own Facebook post, as you can see here. Open letter to Alex Kurtzman. Hey Alex, Andy Weir here. I'm posting to apologize about stuff I said on the Critical Drinkers podcast. I feel like my quotes were taken out of context as salacious sound bites. I hope you saw the other parts where I said how much I like you as a person and what a nice guy you are. I was trying to be funny, but in retrospect it comes off as disrespectful and mean, so I'm sorry for that. I was also trying to be self-deprecating when I said, but they didn't like my pitch, so F them, but out of context it can read like I actually meant it. I'm a blunt person, always have been, and it's been 10 years since the media cared about what I had to say about anything, so I kind of forgot to watch my words when I have a film in theaters. And then blah blah blah, he asked to have a phone call or a Zoom with him, and then he used a meme saying that he puts his own foot in his mouth. Yeah, it just comes off as backtracking to me. So yes, Andy went on Critical Drinkers podcast for a very simple reason, because he's a fan of the Critical Drinker. He also agrees that modern Hollywood is a cesspool of activists, which it is. But Andy, unfortunately, is also a cog in the Hollywood machine, to a certain degree too. So naturally, he fell back in place when the going got tough, which now just makes him come off a little defeated if you ask me. As the most relevant post on Andy's Facebook apology says there, his own fans are still disappointed despite him apologizing. that he hung out at all with the critical drinker to begin with, and claiming that Andy going on Drinker's channel was his first mistake because apparently aligning yourself with Drinker, that is bad to do. Which, yes, it's just ridiculous. This is why modern Hollywood, and by association, stuff like games and shows and comics and more, they are all over the place at the way that they are. Because everyone is scared to actually be their own person in these industries. They don't know what to think or do until the monolith tells them what their identity will be for the foreseeable future. The only reason why people hate the Drinker is because they know he's right. I mean, if he wasn't right about Hollywood, then what's happening would not be happening the way that it is. Hollywood wouldn't be in the terrible position that they find themselves in currently, because in order to keep jobs when it comes to making movies, you kind of need to make good movies so people will go and watch them in theaters, right? It's like a game as well. You see so many games journalists getting laid off from this website or another. Happens all the time, yet the problem is always capitalism. And never once that the writers at these websites have weaponized their positions to attack the readers that are kind of the lifeblood of their entire operations existing in the first place. This is why games flop, why studios close down, and games nobody cares for cease to exist, like a High Guard has, to name just one recent example. It never works to attack the audience is the point. And again, if Drinker was wrong, then what's happening would not be happening. So the Wall Street Journal even panicked recently how the amount of jobs available when it comes to Hollywood-aligned projects has staggeringly dropped off a cliff in the past 4 years or so alone. As you can see here from this graph they made to show, in 2021, there were 18,560 jobs in television in Los Angeles. By 2025, it was now down to just 6,582 available jobs. Feature films dropped from 3,406 to 1,999. Commercial jobs dropped off a cliff too, from 5,319 to just 2,742 available jobs. It does not take a genius to look at the absolute state of modern Hollywood in the heart of Los Angeles, California, and go, uh-oh, everything is getting worse, isn't it? Even the New York Post couldn't swindle the story into positivity with their article titled, "Fears Grow of Detroit-Style Decline as Hollywood Jobs Evaporate." For my international viewers who may not know what that means, you see, Detroit is a place in America, and they used to be the hub for industrial work like making cars and such. But pretty much Detroit's administration just mismanaged the city's future with funds and horrible taxes and job cuts and more, that it all effectively led to a mass exodus of people like leaving Detroit for good for like other cities and states in America. So Detroit's kind of a ghost town now. So taking that into consideration, that's basically what's happening to modern Hollywood now. But instead of mismanaging funds, it's more Hollywood wants to keep pushing Californian activists speaking to everything under the sun, which in turn makes everything unwatchable. As seen here in New York Post's article, around 30% of all jobs in film and TV have effectively been erased already. This is for a myriad of reasons. Yes, it's taxes. Yes, it's the use of AI and all that as well, but it's also because people are not paying to see most movies in theaters or watch TV shows these days either. The reasoning is many, right? The popcorn and the drink combo is too expensive. It's annoying to sit with loud people in a movie theater who are on their phones 24/7. And generally speaking, the vast majority of movies that are being made are, like I said, politically bludgeoning tools instead of being made for the sake of entertaining you. Naturally, this means that most people just don't go to the movies unless it's like a Spider-Man and Avengers or something like that level event now. I think the only other movie that I'm seeing in theaters this year besides Spider-Man or Avengers for me is probably the Michael Jackson biopic, I think. Besides that, the vast majority of movies that have came and went, I just kind of wait for streaming, honestly. If I even watch them, honestly, that's not even guaranteed. Mostly because I can't watch most TV or movies these days, I gotta be honest. The propaganda is so blatant, it just makes me nope out immediately. Like, I saw a few clips of that show, The Pit, and everyone's like, oh, it's amazing. Like, IGN gave it a 10 out of 10, if that matters at all. It really doesn't, but anyways. And how in that Pit show, they were putting modern social commentary with, like, ice raids and stuff in it, and I just have to roll my eyes. No, thanks. I'm not watching your savior complex show, even if you paid me to do it, and it's not because I don't care about those things or anything, but it's mostly because if I watch something, I want to be entertained, right? I want real escapism. There is no escapism in most modern entertainment. It's just avenues to preach, and I hate that with a passion. Again, if Drinker was wrong, then what's been happening wouldn't have happened, but it did actually. So what does that tell you? Hilariously, as seen here, where I highlighted, besides cost rising being a factor, Hollywood has another big problem, which is YouTube and TikTok especially. So people are just kind of watching stuff there instead, like you are right now, obviously. Instead of the next ideology simulator, this time with more allegories to Nobody is Illegal on Stolen Land TV show, number 5,000 of the season or something, something. Instead, people are just watching stuff like this, or drinker videos, or if you're like me, you watch cute dog videos daily, which I do because I love dogs. But the fact that websites might hate Drinker or anyone who agrees with him, and people like Andy Weir, who went on his show, are now backpedaling the way that they are, not fully, but they are backpedaling still, it shows still where this sort of thing is at. The problem with what Drinker embodies, which is the counterculture of modern entertainment, is that you can't really prove that what he's saying is wrong. Media is worse, by definition now, than it was before. There's bright spots, sure, but generally speaking, it is still pretty bad. So since they can't prove someone like a critical drinker wrong in his opinions, well, they're just going to smear him instead. Like Matt Dinneman, that's the author of a book called Dungeon Crawler Carl. I don't know what this book is, but anyways, as seen here, this Matt guy revoked his association with Drinker and claims that he wants to remove any part of Drinker's involvement in his success in the future. As Drinker says above, this Matt guy was very eager to work with Drinker in order to use his audience for fame and money when he needed it. But as soon as he wanted to break into Hollywood proper, he suddenly denounces Drinker at the same time. Interesting, isn't it? What I find interesting as well is that whenever someone like a Drinker, a Nerdrotic, you name it, it is mentioned in sort of articles, it's always the same exact pattern. It's never to confirm that their opinions or beliefs are right, even though they have accurately predicted which movies and such will fail and do well all of the time. But it's really always for one reason, which is character assassination. They're going to call someone like this controversial, toxic, or a grifter, yet they will never address the argument itself, because they know that if they did do that, it would lead to these types having to admit something very, very uncomfortable, which is that modern Hollywood is actually in very serious trouble, whether they like it or not. Because the people in Hollywood, they don't really want a conversation to be had. After all, they just gave one battle after another, which is a film all about legitimizing Hollywood-esque political talking points against those of the vast majority of Americans for a reason. That's why I got the award. All of this with the Andy Weir interview that the media hated. They hated it because it was two sides of the coin. The independent voice and Hollywood agreeing that entertainment is in a bad spot and needs to rediscover what makes it special before it's too late. But the thing is, I don't think Hollywood nor video games made in a Western sense even really want to fix their problems. Because to admit that the problems existed due to hubris or socio-political reasons, that is akin to death at this point. It's instead better in their mind to ignore it, double down on whatever you believe in, and continue making things that nobody wants to watch or buy. Because it wasn't made for you anyways, apparently, but that mystical modern audience instead that definitely never shows up anyways. But the fact that this somehow became a scandal at all shows just how cooked this whole thing really is. And if you ask me, the outrage wasn't about what Andy Weir even said, nor was it about the interview. What the outrage was about is simple. It's all about control. Because with Drinker, Nerdrotic, anyone who really speaks up for people, whether it's in movies, games, or anything else, the reason why these people are hated is very simple. It's because they represent something that the modern entertainment machine really hates, which is that they are independent voices that audiences actually trust. It's the same reason why games journalists hate someone like me. Why whenever the usual type of game does poorly, these types always act puzzled as to how why it could have happened. What do you mean High Guard shut down? How could Concord be gone? Why did no one play 1348X VOD, the lesbian night game? Oh, the horror. Because they don't realize that they refuse to tackle the issues head on. Instead, it's just, I have to be right even if I'm wrong, because to be wrong is worse than like death to me pretty much, which is really stupid. And it's all because before Access Media across the board had everybody by the balls, the studios made the movies, or the publishers greenlighted the new video games to get made. Entertainment journalist types would then tell audiences which movies or games were great with their review scores and whatnot. Audiences would then listen, because these were the voices that they trusted, and then the system would feed back into itself again and again. But since the whole internet thing happened and politics became far more important than fun, well, it all shifted. Now people would rather listen to a content creator who's unfiltered over a legacy outlet. Because an IGN or a Washington Post is going to be increasingly disconnected from the audience than a single person who has actual control over their own messaging and content. And it's that loss of influence that really terrifies them. And I mean, who can really blame them? They, as in Hollywood, want their own drinker or neurotic on their side, but it can't really happen. Because then they would have to not lie to their audiences, which is impossible by design for what they do. And I mean, look at the state of modern franchises on all facets of entertainment, right? There's constant reboots, there's endless sequels, and hundreds of millions of dollars that are all just being spent to produce stories that just kind of feel emptier than ever. Looking at you, Spider-Man 2. I mean, the Insomniac game, not the Sam Raimi one. The Sam Raimi Spider-Man 2 is goated. But anyways, this, my dear viewers, what happens when corporate bureaucracy just kind of replaces real creative vision, when studios stop chasing great storytelling, but instead they're just kind of fixated on the algorithms that dictate to tell them what matters instead. Oh, we need brand management. We need risk mitigation nonsense. Don't forget about hitting those demographics. That's really important. But it's all complete nonsense. The end result is that movies and games that just kind of feel designed by committee instead of real passion. It's all safe, predictable slop that is endlessly hollow, and their emotions are surface level. No wonder people are walking away. But this is why the criticism from independent creators is more akin to heresy, because even me, right, I'm noticing the patterns too. I tell you guys when I see a pattern in a game, oh, it has diverse characters, there's a girl boss, yeah, there's the ugly haircut, yeah, it's all patterns. And it's a systemic problem that is devouring these industries whole because everybody is too afraid to challenge it. And because they refuse to acknowledge it, that's where the rot sets in. And that's also why so many people hate the critical drinker and others, I guess, because they at least see things for what they are instead of what they're trying to make themselves out to be, if that makes sense. And the reason why none of these websites or whatever want Drinker to have attention is because it would require them to acknowledge that audiences may actually have a point, which these types have operated on for years, thinking that audiences are just stupid when they're not. But the irony of this all is almost too perfect, because the more outrage is brought by the mere existence of someone like Drinker, the more attention they're just going to bring to him, which will just lead to more people seeing the patterns, and Hollywood will collapse even more. And the more you can accurately pick out and understand which Hollywood or game releases are going to be another bloated creative bank or a mess, these warnings stop sounding like criticisms to you and more like predictions. And in the end, what this leads to is the slow collapse of an entire cultural machine that has forgotten why audiences fell in love with movies, games, TV, or whatever else in the first place, right? They traded real creativity for messaging, characters mattered less than ideology, and branding matters more than storytelling now. And audiences can only respond one way that really matters and speaks to these people, which is just to walk away entirely. And that is why voices like this need to be destroyed, even though they won't. Because when you have these industries all drowning in trying to create some carefully managed narrative, it just leaves people starved for actual honesty. And the more Hollywood or the games industry tries to silence that honesty, the louder that it's going to become. And they are realizing now that they could have had their power over audiences to this day, but they chose to lie to them instead, and that's on them. And because of that, Hollywood, the games industry, all of them and more, they have to live with the failure of knowing their actions led to the creation of the critical drinker, Nerdrotic, Yellow Flash, and many more. And even though they know that it's their fault, they're never going to admit it anyways. Oh well, we'll just keep on winning, I guess. But what do you think? Let me know. Is the media right about Drinker or not? Subscribe if you'd like to. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.